Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today we would have a look at a bunch of It's Fixed stuff and also the change logs for War Thunder. Also, I've been having a look at the data mines and there's a bunch of random camos that keep turning up in them, and I thought about covering them, but also it looks like it's probably for like some Twitch drops, maybe some more of the esports stuff. I don't know when the next esports kind of tournament is, so my guess is it's probably something to do with that. But yeah, it looks like there's a bunch of things which are going on that front, so we'll probably have a look at those kind of later on. Also, at the same time in the It's Fixed, they have made a ton of different changes, which have actually been really cool to see. And ones which are kind of surprising and also go against some of the statements that some of the employees at Gaijin have actually said on how some of the systems work. So we're going to go over the It's Fixed and also the changelog today. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe and also like the video. Let's get into it. So the It's Fixed goes through most of the big changes that they're bringing in, and there's a few of them here that I think people will be super happy with. The first one being the nature side of things. So you know how in the last update Gaijin added that feature where basically if you have bad weather, it will automatically spawn you on the ground instead of in the air? One of the most obnoxious kind of mechanics I think I've ever seen when it comes to the game, because basically it goes against your automatic systems. Generally when, you know, people spawn in, they don't think about where they're spawning in terms of ground and also naval, because, you know, you have the point on the map. But if you had bad weather, it would automatically spawn you on the airfield, so you spawn in and you go, oh, well, that sucks. Well, what they've done now is, based on feedback, they have added a option in the air battle settings where you can actually turn off this feature, so you can ignore if it's bad weather and you will just spawn in the air anyway. So this is great because, you know, once again, this is them responding to feedback and also realizing that not everybody likes these types of changes, which I think is pretty good. Another thing they're also doing is they're adding in a mandatory anti-cheat for top BRs for arcade. So if you didn't know, realistic and I believe simulator, you need anti-cheat installed to the battle anti-cheat installed to actually play them. With air arcade and ground arcade, that isn't the thing. That isn't something that has been needed. And their general thought was, well, since you can see all the markers anyway, you don't really need the anti-cheat there, because, you know, most anti-cheats when it comes to War Thunder are more about visual stuff instead of actual, like, playing automation stuff. The problem is, as War Thunder has evolved, and even way back in the day, I remember cheats in arcade giving you massive advantages on actually leading targets and then also kind of auto-aiming for you. So the idea that these cheats in arcade weren't going to be useful because of the marker system always seemed a little bit weird for me. But it looks like Gaijin have finally decided that's the case too. So every kind of battle, when you have a vehicle set up of BR11 and higher, you will have to now have the anti-cheat installed. And what they're going to do over time is they plan to gradually lower the minimum BR threshold for mandatory anti-cheat as well. So basically anti-cheat will come to all of the arcade BRs, just like it does everything else. I wonder if they've found a different way of kind of detecting things or something going on. Who knows at the end of the day that's what's kind of going to happen with that. Overall, it's a positive though, because it basically means that more people are going to be under the anti-cheat umbrella, so therefore they're going to catch more people who are cheating. And obviously, if you have parts of the game where people don't get, you know, banned for cheating, or it doesn't even check for people cheating, you're obviously going to have more people cheating in those areas because they can get away with it. So this is a good way of trying to stop that. Also, economy fixes. This one was surprising to read about because of the fact that I remember being told, and, you know, it's on the forums, there's a few community managers and other kind of helper people who've said this, that there was no kind of economic differences between destroying naval AI vehicles and also standard player naval vehicles. Turns out that just wasn't the case. This was actually shown to be kind of false a few weeks/months ago when they changed the reward structure around them. to make them more like the player one. And now it seems like there was another quote-unquote bug in the system. It's always interesting when it comes to these economy things. Seems to be a lot of bugs, and all of them seem to be one way, which is just lowering people's amounts that they get out of them. Very odd how that works. There isn't many ones where it's like, oh, sorry, we gave you too much stuff. It's always too little. How odd, how weird. Anyway, so basically, the way that it was working, there was a problem in ground and also naval battles. In ground battles, with the multi-vehicle SAM systems and also reconnaissance UAVs and also AI naval vessels, so that's the kind of naval component, basically, if you weren't controlling these vehicles and they got destroyed or shot down, it would give you less reward than it should. So basically, it was giving you less because it was seen as kind of like an AI/uncontrolled vehicle. So basically, the reward coefficient was lower, which kind of sucks. And hopefully, this is now fixed. So basically, they have fixed the calculation of the RP reward for vehicles destroyed according to player intelligence and for the destruction of AI-controlled vessels in naval battles. There was an error in the battle summary message where the sum of the other awards column was calculated incorrectly. That's also been fixed. So it isn't that you weren't getting the right rewards. The game was also actively telling you the wrong rewards. So that's just magical, in it. Like, I don't know how else to put it, but it's fixed now. So I suppose we don't worry about it too much until the next research bug that means that you get less stuff or bang for your buck comes along, which I'm sure will happen pretty soon. So then we have the next part, which is like hit by shells and shrapnel. We've already covered this in previous changelogs, but basically, if your armor was curved up to a point, it would be negated. So basically, even if you had like 500 millimeters of armor, it was counted as 0, which means that you could get overpressured through it. And also at the same time, the round would go through the piece of armor, which was 0, and your crew member's thickness instead was taken into account, which is like 2 millimeters or 5 millimeters. So therefore, it would just go straight through them and not do any damage to them. So basically, you would have this fantastic time of not doing anything. But luckily, they fixed that, so that isn't too much of an issue now. They also improved the weapon selector, made it a bit more transparent so it doesn't just take up a massive amount of the screen, which generally I think is a good idea, just because the weapon selector is a really nice idea, but I feel like it doesn't take into account how hectic War Thunder matches are. Like, War Thunder matches are not something which are just very chill and very relaxed, right? What ends up happening with them is you have to, like, quick switch quickly, you have to react quickly, and you're not able to do that if you're using the weapon selector. So I don't really understand how it's supposed to go, but at least now it takes up less of the screen and also should be nicer to look at, which is always a positive. There was also an update 2.47.0.68, and basically all of this stuff is the stuff that was in there, it's fixed, but also just a few little individual changes for certain vehicles. So for example, the Eurofighters, there was a bug where the redundant artificial horizon in the cockpit was displayed incorrectly. That's been fixed. All of the Ju-87s, or at least the D3s and the D5, there was also a bug where under the fuselage bombs did not use the ejection device to deflect the bombs when dropped. So basically, if you were using those compared to other Ju-87s, it would drop at different times, which, you know, obviously isn't great for learning these things. The D4Y3, there was a bug where it was impossible to create a custom weapon set consisting of 3 250 kilo bombs. And also, there was a bug where a 250 kilo was dropped through the closed bomb bay door, which is kind of fun. The D4Y3s are very awkward vehicles. They don't really have great armaments. And once again, it's just another one of those like Japanese aircraft that's designed for like long distance destructions. But in War Thunder, obviously that doesn't really matter as much. We also had the MiG-29 SMT. There was a bug where the artificial horizon was displayed incorrectly in the aircraft cockpit, so very similar to the Eurofighters. And also for the F-14s, the camera in the third person has been moved further from the vehicle, so it won't take up like half of the screen, which has always been a problem with the F-14. So a big improvement. In ground vehicles, there was a bug where SPAA could only capture a new target with IRST in the sights after double activation of the lock radar IRST target on action. That's been fixed. And then also the Elder 98 mobility has been improved. So there's been, when it comes to War Thunder, right? So when the update came out, there was a bunch of like major issues, right? So proximity missiles not working, and then also like a few other ones. But then once they fixed those, it's always interesting to see the second set. So a lot of people like focus on, like the major issues. And then for some reason, there's like a few minor issues that get a lot of kind of coverage, and one of them was the Elder 98. So basically, with the Elder 98, one of the problems with it is Gaijin, I don't think, in War Thunder models power transmissions. So basically, the back kind of truck of the Elder 98 doesn't have any power to it. So the front part of it is dragging along the back part of it. They're not moving in tandem. So that means that whenever you're trying to go up something or move around something, you are dragging this big piece of mass behind you that has no power attached to it at all. So basically, it was just very hard to move around. And I had a look at a bunch of the bug reports for this, and it turned out it's just Gaijin doesn't model this yet, and they will do in the future. So it's kind of one of those things where they need to come up with like a stopgap fix before they start adding in stuff like power transmissions. Maybe if they add more of these vehicles which need it, then they'll do it. But I think this is maybe the only one that would need it at this moment. So yeah, it's just one of those where it's just kind of in an unfortunate place, and it kind of gets affected by that, and that sucks. It would be much better if it was fully modeled. For Naval, the Roma, there was a bug where closed AA mounts received pressure damage from nearby explosions. That's been fixed. And also a bug where a fire in second caliber mounts could be spread to their ammunition magazines through unmanned feed elevators. That's been fixed, which obviously sucks because the Polar already doesn't survive that much. So basically, you're just making it even more unsurvivable. The Novorossiysk, there was a bug where the visual effect of the detonation in aft magazines occurred at the bow of the ship. So that's been fixed too. It's kind of funny. And also, there is a million interface fixes, all which are very tiny and generally, fix a few things, such as a display of the number of shells on weapon icons in the visual weapon selector has been added, so therefore you know how many shells you have. Also, the radar control screen now no longer displays control prompts for functions that are not present in the vehicle radar. And there was a bug where the value of the number of clips was hidden on the action panel when hovering over the belts if the line exceeded 7 characters, even when there was enough space in the interface to display these values. That's been fixed too. And also issues where opening the statistics window would cause the cursor to move to the player's nickname, which, when opening a tactical map, caused the cursor to be on the vehicle or weaponry, which caused the respective card to be displayed, obscuring map elements, and that's been fixed. And this was a particularly disruptive for players when controlling from HOTAS or VR mode. It would probably be pretty disruptive from controller as well, right? Since that's basically how the controller stuff works. There was also a bug where the reward for intercepting ammunition was not included in the total rewards in the message with the results of the battle, due to which the value of the other awards field did not correspond to the correct one, which is always fun. Then the bug with armor penetration and damage type icons might be missing from the icon on some rockets and missiles. That's been fixed. There was also a bug where tanks equipped with rockets displayed an APHE shell icon instead of a solid shell one. For ground vehicles and naval vessel ammunition, the thickness of the penetrated armor displayed on the shell icon now takes into account high explosive armor penetration and correctly reflects the thickness of penetrated armor of shells with significant high explosive armor penetration relative to the ammunition of that particular vehicle. The Mach number limit on the aircraft card is now indicated with an accuracy in the hundredths. The grey background has been removed from fully unlocked modification tiers in the modification window, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why they'd do that. There was also a bug where in the modification window, the hint about the need to install weapons was displayed on the ammunition of uninstalled weapons only if the modification which unlocks this weapon was not purchased, and not when the vehicle was removed, and that's also been fixed. The hint text has also been adjusted, and localization of actions with bombs has been added to the battle event log. There was also a bug where the fleet rank requirements value was not saved when editing the requirements for submitting an application to a squadron, which has also been fixed, and a bug where some tips didn't disappear when displaying the mission summary block upon the completion of the mission as well, and a bug where on the radar control screen when controlling with a gamepad, the cursor continued to be displayed with calling the multifunctional menu, so they've fixed those too, and a bug where the squad leader changed the vehicle preset. The battle rating indicated next to the name of the game did not include this either. So you can see there's just a bunch of different interface bugs which they decided were all going to get fixed. We've also talked about the economy changes already earlier, but if you want to have a look at them, obviously in the changelog, but basically it just goes through the numbers, such as there was a bug where naval battles approximately 5.5 times less RP. So 5.5 times less RP could sometimes be awarded for the destruction of enemy bots. That's been fixed. Once again, as I said like a month, 2 months ago, they said that this wasn't something that was happening. Turns out it was happening. Again. So it only took a few months, but they got it fixed. For locations and missions, the Finland, Ardennes winter, Poland winter, Maginot Line winter, the range of height differences and the snow layer located on the mainland scraper has been reduced in these locations, which is kind of interesting. This was done to reduce the amount of shadow spots that appeared on the snow when the sun was close enough to the horizon. I mean, that's fair. It's the major issue I have with those maps is it blinds me. It actually hurts my eyes. So that's one of the big issues that I have. So hopefully it can be a little less shiny and a little more reduced. So that's all of the updates along with the It's Fixed. There's a lot of information out, over the last few days and a lot of stuff turning up just around the place. So as always, let me know your thoughts. Look after yourselves. Peace be with you. I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.